Hey everyone, welcome to So You Want to Be in Ministry. I'm Tim, and we are all about getting you to the finish line that God has put in front of you. We do that through educating you. You might be at the starting line. We want to educate you on what ministry looks like. We want to equip you while you're running your race to that finish line. We want to encourage you. Maybe you're just ready to jump out of the race, and it's not time. You haven't crossed that finish line yet. We want to encourage you to get to that finish line. And sometimes that's what we need, is a little bit of encouragement, and we want to provide that for you. Now, today, we're going to be interviewing a movie critic, if you can believe that. Russ Matthews. He was my Sunday school teacher. I kind of bring that up in the episode that you're about to watch and listen to. He was my wife and I's Sunday school teacher. God did an amazing work in his life. He and his family ended up going as missionaries to Australia, and then one thing led to another, and I'll let him tell his story. But he ended up as a movie critic in Sydney, Australia. God is really using him. He says this multiple times, but he's basically the Christian movie critic in the room with a bunch of other movie critics. It's just a fascinating story. He is passionate about movies, and I'll tell you this, we're kind of entering into the summer season, and a lot of churches I know use this time to do their At the Movies series or something along that lines. And he has a unique perspective on using movies to share the gospel. He also wrote a book, The Word Becomes Film. All the details of that will be in the description, in the video, or in the podcast. Make sure you check that out. For me, it was the second best book I read last year. Pat Nemmers, he was back a few episodes ago. Pat Nemmers was number one. Russ Matthews was number two. They are phenomenal books. Buy them both. But I think in this season, if you're thinking about like At the Movies or how do we use movies to share the gospel, you want to buy Russ Matthews' book because it will explain a lot. And he also explains it in this interview. So let's jump in and see what he has to say to us. It was such a fun interview. Here's Russ. Well, hey, Russ, so glad to have you on the podcast today. We met about 25 years ago, 20 to 25.
Exactly.
Yeah, several
Yeah,
years
you
ago.
see all the gray here, that's why, baby, that's
Yeah,
why, yeah, that's
so
great.
I got it too. But my wife and I, we actually were talking about this. We were in your Sunday school class. You were our teacher, so I don't know if you remember that. We do, but you're our Sunday school teacher several decades ago.
Wow! Oh, I remember teaching the Sunday school class, and the only thing that's encouraging about that for me, outside of the fact that you remember it, is the fact that you're still Christians and you're still walking for the Lord, that I didn't stray, cause you to stray in any
Yeah.
way. So, no, I think that's fantastic. That's a blessing for me as far as getting to hear that sort of memory for what we were able to do. But yeah, we've known each other for quite a while, but we've lived on different continents now for quite a while too. So it's just great to be able to kind of catch up. And I'm thrilled to be on your podcast. I can't wait to see kind of where this conversation goes.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. So let's jump in a little bit. You are a movie critic in Australia, also missionary.
I,
um,
right.
how did that happen? Like, take us through like the bullet points of how we even got to this point, because I find it very fascinating. I'm sure other people would too as well.
I'll try and keep it short and sharp as best I possibly can. But boy, yeah, I would have never thought that it would have been something I would be doing, Tim. When we came to Australia specifically to work with helping with evangelistic outreach and also church planting. Initially is what we planned on doing. And work with a group called City Bible Forum. And specifically what we do is we do outreach in the workplace setting. And so we do lunchtime talks and all these various things of where we invite people to come in, both Christians and those that are inquiring or who aren't Christian yet, and considering and engaging with the Bible. And so I ran these events for quite a few years. And one year we were looking at trying to kind of fill a 4-week time slot and kind of do something fun and engaging, a little bit different. And so we decided to do something with film. And what we did was 4 weeks on film, and I was able to bring in 3 different speakers, including myself, and talking about the impact of film, but how we can actually get to God's story through film. And so it was great working with these guys. They're really great friends of mine now. And one of them actually, Mark Hadley actually asked me to write a review because he knew I was passionate about film. He'd been a critic for years. And he said, I can't get to this one screening, wondering if you'd be willing to go and go see it and write the review. And I said, sure, it'd be good. And I did. I wrote the review. He didn't end up using it, so I started a blog at that point, and started writing film reviews that way, just kind of as a kind of way of an outlet, a creative outlet. And but what's interesting about it is one of the other guys on the panel, Adrian Drayton, said, "Hey, I really liked your review. Would it be okay? I publish a magazine for one of the local church outfits here. Would you be willing to have your reviews in our magazine?" And I'm like, going, "Well, sure, I would love that. No problem at all." And interestingly enough, he is the one who had started Real Dialogue,
Okay.
REEL dialogue.com. And we just started working on not only doing reviews and content, but then also events through that. And eventually, Adrian kind of stepped aside and pretty much gave me the reins to Real Dialogue. And so, what has happened over the past 10 years is it's grown into something, Tim, that I would have never thought would have happened. Is we now have over like 1,400 reviews that we've written. We have content. We are doing promotions. We work with film distributors in the local area, as well as doing events. We just had an event a couple weeks ago where we had 250 people come along, both Christians and not, kind of coming along and really be able to engage them with the Bible. And it's something I just absolutely passionate about. And I think it'll come out in the book. It comes out in the book is that film just breaks down barriers. I mean, people just love talking about their favorite movie, what they've gone to see, whether they like it or don't like it. But then for those of us who kind of look at it too, putting it through a gospel lens, it just automatically goes, it can go right to a conversation about God, Jesus, in the Bible. So it's been a blast. It's been a joyride. And the only thing is, I think we're just scratching the surface of the potential for what it could be and what we can do with it. But anyway, that's kind of how I got into it.
Well, it seems that way. It seems like you're scratching the surface. You got the Real Dialogue, City Bible Forum, Hope 103.2. Like, there's a lot of things happening in this. How did the radio station thing happen?
Yeah. Well, oh, this is classic. Well, two of the guys that were on the panel, Ben McKecken and Mark Hadley, they had a show on Hope 103.2, and so they would bring me in every once in a while, and it was always funny because of my accent. We're Australian citizens, but didn't get the Australian accent because Americans trying to do an Australian accent never works. But they kind of get a kick out of it because it almost sounds like they're calling the United States to get this guy in to do the movie reviews, but I'm just sitting there in the room with them. Well, what the person I do the watch list with now, the podcast, Laura Bennett, she ended up being on one of my other panels at an event. And then we just kind of connected. She loves film, as you can tell from the podcast. And so she just has me on weekly to be able to kind of do that. Well, then the other um, radio personality said, "Hey, could you come in and do it here?" And so I was doing it on the various shows. But then we got connected with a group that oversees most of the radio stations' websites, and so now we're on most of the radio stations around Australia, doing not only film reviews but also God in 60 Seconds. And so it's a it's a blast. I just absolutely love doing it, and it's a great team to be able to kind of work with. And there's always new content. That's what's great about. I mean, every week I can come to them and say, "Hey, here's 3 films. You want to talk about them? Let's do it." And we try and keep it engaging, but also they allow me specifically on Hope 103.2 and also Rima out of Newcastle is allow me then to talk about the real dialogue, meaning what is it, where's the bridge that takes us from this film to talking about faith, talking about the Bible, talking about our Christianity and Jesus. And so that's what really keeps me going, and that's what they love about it. It differentiates me from other reviewers. And interestingly enough, Tim, one thing COVID did, it's funny. What happened, there were quite a few people that were doing what I do as far as I get to go to the press screenings, I get to go and hang out with the other reviewers. And when COVID hit, all of a sudden things I thought, oh, we're just going to be this ministry is just going to go the way of the wind. But it didn't because of streaming. All of a sudden we had to try and keep up. We actually had double the amount of content. I was able to bring on additional writers, But funny enough, a lot of the other reviewers kind of ended up kind of disappearing. And so at the end of this whole lockdown thing, all of a sudden I found myself kind of the only Christian sitting in the room with most of
Mm.
these other reviewers. And so we have kind of a unique position within that. And so it's really been quite a ride, and I've been enjoying it. So then on top of it, even writing a book, why
Yes,
not?
yes. We're gonna get to that here in a second. How? So you, I mean, I could say why movies, but it seems like because it just breaks down walls. So, but in the Christian world, that can be a little bit funny sometimes. So
That's right.
how, like, have you had to break through walls? Have you had to help people understand it? Like, what are some of those things that you've had to navigate to just help Christians understand this is a tool to be used, not something to be scared of or concerned about to a certain level? Yeah.
That is a great question, and I think it's one that it really has to be kind of put at the forefront for most people, especially when it comes to Christianity and film. It can be a very tenuous and challenging thing. One of the things I want to clarify is I'm not a movie evangelist, meaning that I am here to evangelize people watching movies. Okay. If you aren't comfortable with watching film, if film is something that you're really not into, or you even feel that it's not necessarily something that or it makes you compromise your faith, don't do it. I mean, don't watch them. We don't have to have this discussion. But for all of those people who do watch film, and their friends who watch film, and family members and coworkers who it's just a natural conversation piece, more so than sport, more so than just kind of day-to-day living. Most people can, all you have to do is say, hey, tell me about your favorite film, or tell me what you watched this weekend. And people will just go on and on. And for Christians, see, this is where I see every opportunity being an opportunity to bring in Jesus to the conversation, or bring in the Bible to the conversation. Almost every film, I mean, I can say pretty much every film, you can, if you put it through a biblical or gospel lens, it just naturally can take you down a path that kind of gets you there. It's not that weird gear crunch moment where you're going, oh, yeah, that was Jesus. It's like, no, even a film like, a superhero film where you're going, well, there's kind of this savior mentality in every single film that you see. And then you almost see kind of this death, burial, and resurrection scene. It's the hero falling over the cliff, dying, but then boom, the hand comes up over the top, and there he is. Oh my goodness, he's come back to life
Oh,
again. And so, it's that sort of thing. But even, love stories and all these other things, you can really get people there. But it's very natural. I mean, we just had an event the other night where we were watching a film. It's by a director named Guy Ritchie, which maybe some people may know, some people not. But he's not known for Christian films, and he's definitely not known for films that are necessarily going to get you to faith conversations. But because of the theme of trust that kind of came up in it, we had a great discussion with some friends who aren't Christian yet, and how they were really intrigued by, oh, how can I get to talking about God? How did you get to talking about God from that movie out of all films? But yet we did, and it also was very natural and kind of just gave us a great opportunity as a springboard to considerations of what is our faith and what we believe. So I love film, but I definitely say that, this isn't for people. I'm not trying to force people to like movies. This is pretty much for people who do, but then also want to see it as a way of being able to talk about their faith, Christians talking about their faith through film, and then hopefully be able to see people being introduced to Jesus through that.
yeah. I think it's a really cool tool to use, and I love movies. What is some of your favorite movies? I'm just gonna ask right now. Like,
Oh yeah. Well, it's always kind of an interesting challenge because, especially when you watch so many films, to be able to say what's your favorite movie. I have what you call comfort films, and
okay,
it helps me to kind of which means the movie. It's not maybe the greatest movies you've ever seen.
hmm,
It's not necessarily the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's the film that when you're having a tough day, or you just want to put something in that really makes you feel good, makes you smile, or inspires you. I put on my comfort films, and so
okay.
I love going back. As you know, I grew up in Iowa, so Field of Dreams is one of those I still go back to on a regular basis. Funny enough, another baseball movie, Moneyball, is one that
Oh,
always
yes,
just brilliant writing.
yes.
Aaron Sorkin, brilliant writing, and actually Brad Pitt, I think, is an I mean, even though he's Academy Award winner now, but she's underappreciated because he's too pretty. But it is just a great film as far as
Mhm.
just the dialogue, and it really captures the heart of yeah, of people and things. Comedy, Ocean's 11, still it always gets me there because I've always just loved that the dynamic between all of the
Yep.
just the camaraderie that kind of goes across it all. And then probably one is surprisingly the film that really kind of got me passionate about considering a love of film, and it was goes all the way back to the Christopher Reeve Superman film. And
Okay.
it's just it may not be the greatest one, it may not be the one that everybody thinks of, but it is the one I remember as a child
Mhm.
sitting in the theater at the Riviera in downtown Des Moines. Big screen. This is before VHS, is before DVD, and it's like, wow, it just immersed me, and I just can remember it very distinctly having that effect on me, and so it's still one that I love to go back to. So,
That's
do you have a
awesome.
favorite? Do you have some favorites?
Oh yeah, so I like how you put that, the comfort ones, because that's how I would describe the ones that I would come up with. So Shawshank Redemption for me, I can watch
Oh,
it. I could watch it 24/7. I love it.
sure.
It's built on hope, and so like, man, I eat it up.
Oh, yeah.
Moneyball would be in there. Like when you said it, I was like, yes, that one. Um, What's another? So I'm a big like military movie guy. So going back old school, I loved The Longest Day. I could still watch
Oh,
The
yeah.
Longest Day. Yeah.
Wow, there you
Yeah.
go. Okay,
So I
yeah.
could go back to that. Bridge Too Far, I could go back to that one too. And then more recently, Saving Private Ryan, one of those. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
so those
man.
would be some of mine. Yeah.
Mate, we could go on because I mean, Fury is one of my
Yeah.
favorite
Yep.
films. I think it's just phenomenal. It's got a great character played by Shia LaBeouf. It's called the Bible.
Yep.
It's called Bible in the
Yep.
film. I still probably would go back to Blade Runner as one of my favorite
Okay.
ones. I can watch that over and over again. I try to get back to the original, opposed to all of these director's cuts and all this sort of stuff gets a little off for me. But I do. Shawshank is just a phenomenal film because it never gets old. I
Mm-mm.
don't know, because it's a period piece. It just never really dates itself.
Yep.
There's just something that's quite timeless about it. It's a beautiful film, and I always love the fact too that almost most of the films that we've recommended weren't big box office hits. They were
Yeah.
actually films that just have now grown to have quite a cult following.
Yeah.
Anyway, there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah. I
Those are my
know.
favorite films.
Yeah. Those are good. What was you said Fury. It just triggered a thought with me with Fury. I've thought about because that's a movie that happens in 24 hours. It's a 24-hour
Oh man,
movie. And there's so
that's
many
amazing.
movies like when you think about it, it happened in one day. Like these are
Yeah,
one day films. Like when you watch the whole thing, you get done, you're like, that was 24 hours of
it's amazing.
craziness. Yeah. Yeah, I love those.
Yeah. Oh, I just Fury, and then on top of it, just films that kind of capture. A lot of, if you kind of even tell within the book, it kind of goes after the male. Even though the book is really written for anyone, to both men and women, but really specifically like looking at kind of the something that would capture the male heart, because most
Mhm.
men don't want to read books, and many times they don't necessarily watch all the films, but yet films like Fury, Hell or High Water, a Taylor Sheridan film, even the Guy Ritchie films, that just that like The Man from Uncle,
Okay.
just these films that have great male and female characters in them, but yet really capture what you kind of understand from a male position too, in a really timeless way. I just really appreciate too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, you mentioned that you just did an event. I think I
Yeah.
saw that your daughter was there with you. Is that
Yeah, she
correct?
was.
How is it now? Like, because she's growing up, how is it to
I
actually
know.
be starting to do ministry alongside her? Like, what's that like as a dad?
Well, this poor child, has been coming along to my ministry events for years, and I mean, all my kids have been involved in some way in our ministry, be it with the church, be it with other various events and things, and we're very thankful for our children. They're just incredible, what they've done and where they are in their lives. But, for our youngest, Caroline, who actually came along to that event, but then she actually did her first review, if you can believe it, on the radio with me at Hope 103.2. When I
Okay.
think she was about 7 or 8. I think she did, the Inside Out. They wanted to get a
Okay.
little girl's perspective on, Inside Out, which is a movie,
Yep.
obviously about kind of preteen girl,
Yep.
and she was great. And so she The only problem is now she gets frustrated with her friends when they kind of go, "Oh yeah, well, we just kind of like that movie." She said, "No, no, what do you really like about the movie? Tell me a little bit more. What is it more about it?" Or that the people talk during movies or look at their phones during movies. She said, "What are they doing?
Yeah.
Why would you even come to a movie if you're not going to watch it?" I'm like going, "Oh my word!" When you hear your words spoken back to you, I absolutely love it. I love seeing that. I love seeing the passion for ministry and also for Jesus. But then on top of it, that we kind of have that shared experience as far as for film, because we really, I thoroughly enjoy engaging with film, even if I like it or don't like it, to be able to share that too with your children. Because I also this kind of goes to what you were talking about before. Why film? When you watch a movie, because you watch, especially like in your season of life where you have younger children and all this sort of stuff,
Mhm.
all different seasons, all different ages. But when you have a shared experience of going and watch a movie together, you can come away and you don't have to just do, "Hey, did you like it? Yay." No, it's like, "Hey, what did you like about it? Did it say anything to you, especially as a
Mhm.
Christian? Does it say anything to you about your faith in that film or against it? It might even say something against your faith and something as a warning bells that kind of go off. And it gives you a beautiful inroad to your children's lives by being able to talk to them through a medium that you connect on, a film, but yet you can actually then bring them along the journey into talking about their faith and what that means. And it doesn't have to be a negative, like bashing it kind of thing, but it really can talk about, oh, did you see anything about forgiveness? Do you see anything about family? Do you see anything about parents? Did you think, or was there like a Christ-like figure in that movie? Especially with superhero films. And so I think that's what I love about it. But I look forward to it. I hope that Caroline continues on and looks at what she can do with her life in ministry, and if it includes film, that'd be great too.
Cool. Let's get into the book so we can see it
Okay.
behind you. The word becomes. I got my copy right here. So
Oh, you're so good,
yeah,
Tim. Thanks so much.
yeah. Let's get into it because I love this book. I interviewed Pat Nemmers a
Yeah.
couple episodes ago, and I told him I was like, Russ had my favorite book of the year, and then I read yours, and I felt like I had to eke it just a little bit because I really loved his too.
Oh, his
Um,
is a great book. I
yeah.
definitely would. I definitely would not be offended if his book is one of your favorites. That's
Okay.
for sure.
So those are my top two last year. So,
Mm.
what did you learn writing your first book? I've thought about writing, my first book. I'm sure there's other people that are like, oh man, maybe I should do this. You've done it. Like, talk to us. What did you learn writing your first book?
Yep, I probably would say, as far as in the whole process of it, I mean, because honestly, Tim, I did not expect to be writing a book. I mean,
Hmm.
this totally, I will give credit to God for even wanting to do it or getting the time, honestly, during the whole COVID experience of having some
Yeah.
additional time to be able to do it. And so I really give credit to God in kind of having me kind of go down that path and even considering doing it. And then interestingly enough, one of my counterparts at City Bible Forum, his name's Sam Chan. He actually encouraged me to write a book about real dialogue because he just loves. He did the foreword for the book.
Yeah.
He loves the ministry. He loved being a part of it. He'd been on so many of my panels and things. And so I did. I wrote actually 9 chapters of a how-to book on how you do real dialogue, and it was so boring. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is so dead. I'm like going, and the thing is about this ministry, about film, is it's exciting, it's
Yeah.
engaging, it's meant to grab your attention and get your imagination flowing. And so I was like going, nah. And he agreed. He's like going, oh yeah, there's great content in there, but he said, nah, it's pretty dry. And I said, so I used to be in business for years and for about 14 years prior to going into Christian ministry. And the books that really stood out to me were books like The Greatest Salesman in the World, Death by Meeting, Who Moved My Cheese. They're parables,
Yep.
which again you can just kind of take from Jesus's handbook. Parables that kind of shows you how to do what we're striving to have you see it. Because really, what we're doing here, Tim, with real dialogue is not something that you really see anywhere else in the sense, and I'm not trying to go, oh, look at us. It's really going, you just don't, because
You
thinking of
don't.
film as a means of pointing people towards the gospel, just not really, I mean, outside of inviting somebody to go see Jesus Revolution, but really Jesus Revolution, albeit a good movie, is really for Christians. I
Yep.
mean, it's not. I mean, you can take non-Christians, but most non-Christians are going, not really. But I'll go down and watch Guardians of the Galaxy 3 with you, no problem at all. And so to be able to show people through the book process, because I had a good mate of mine who actually interviewed me on the radio. He's going, "Why don't you just make a movie?" He said, "Why are you making a book?" I was like, going, "Yeah, it's a good point." But it it really just kind of flowed after that. Once I kind of got it, I'm like going, yeah, because all I was doing is the shared experiences. I'm not in the book, but there in both characters, both in Finn Rowan and also in Dylan Quaid, you can see hints of me because it's really my experience and
Yeah.
what we've experienced as a ministry to be able to talk with people about and using film as a means of getting people towards closer to the gospel. And so I would probably say one of the things, write what you know, which I'm sure most people do. I mean, I always find it fascinating when people kind of go through and do all these various things that they don't really know too much about. Well, I know this. This is what I've lived. I kind of experience it on a regular basis. And so it's just great to be able to share it in kind of a parable form. Um, but then on top of it, stick with it, stick with it for the long haul, run for the prize as it says in 1 Corinthians 9, keep going, fight the good fight, all these different inspiring words you can get from the word of God. It's it's a hard slog because once you even get the book, what you think you get the book done, oh my word, the editing process is painful because this is your art.
Yeah.
This is you. It's your heart. It's what I mean, if you're writing a book and you don't feel passionate about it, you probably shouldn't have written the book. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's it's about me. It's even though that's one thing I do like about a parable is that it's not about Russ Matthews. It's not like I've said, well, here's Russ Matthews' experience. Here's Russ Matthews' experience. Here's Russ Matthews' experience. And those aren't bad. It's just that I felt like I could take the focus off of me and I could really put it onto the ministry and then really bring people back to Jesus with it. But mate, editing, and I have a good friend who's an editor. I've had a lot of people edit it before he even got to the publisher. And it was painful. It was hard because you're sitting there going, you find out how you're good at some things, but you're not that great at everything. And grammar is not necessarily one of my best things. But it's just even kind of it's humbling.
Mm.
So that one of the terms in the book is being humbly courageous,
Yeah.
humble courage. And I think that really kind of exemplifies what I would encourage people to do is be humble, be relying on God because he's the only one that can really do it. Because I mean, honestly, once it started flowing, I couldn't quite stop. It was like one of those I'm going, I just got, oh yeah, well, here's the next chapter. Here we go. Here's the next chapter. And it just kind of flowed out. And then the editing process and then the whole publishing and then marketing. Um, if you're going to get into this line, if you're going to do this, you got to be comfortable with promotion.
Yeah.
You got to be comfortable with marketing because really after the book, it doesn't sell itself. And and usually even your publishers aren't all that great at marketing. So you really got to do it a lot of times. And so you have to be comfortable with it. But I'd say trusting in God, being humbly courageous in kind of going forward and really also wise counsel. I just had a lot of people around me. I'm going, hey, what do you think? Should I do it? What are your thoughts? Um and fortunately I had some really good direction in that area too. So nothing that's really groundbreaking, but I think that it's um if you really feel like it's something you got to do, get some counsel, start doing it. Probably one of the best lessons I learned from my editor friend. He said, if you think you want to write every day. You just got to or just do something. Write it out. I mean, now fortunately for me, I get the opportunity with reviews regularly. But when you're writing a book, it's different than writing a
Yeah.
film review. And so just writing something, it just kind of gets the flow going, gets you in practice, you get better at it, it becomes faster. And so yeah, it's actually something I really never thought I would do, honestly, Tim, but I really have come to enjoy it. So yeah, so we'll see. Right now I've got the second one done. Now it needs to
Yeah.
be edited, and I got the third and the fourth in concept and ready to go. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay. That sounds good.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought was phenomenal. So you said parable, so it's fictional characters. Obviously, you use some of your personal, just who you are in it on both sides of the story there. But one thing that I thought you did really well is you kind of painted a picture of real life. Like when I was reading it, too often, this is me. I'll say it's me. When I come in contact with too much Christian fiction or film or something like that, I'm just like, man,
Right.
it's just so cheesy. Like it's just so cheesy. And when I was reading, sorry.
Sorry. It's true. I totally get what you mean. I totally get what you mean. Yeah,
and
and hopefully, yeah.
So when I
Go
was
ahead.
reading yours, I was sitting there going like, "Ah, he's actually talking about real things." Like I could see this really happening with a family. And but in that, I wouldn't say you like were pushing the limits or on the edge or anything like that, but you did really pull back a veil of this is what's really happening with families. How did you navigate that tension of trying to give a real feel to a family while not going too far with it?
Yeah, it's great. It's really good. It's getting good counsel. I mean,
Okay.
unfortunately, also trusting your editors because also you have to have a specific audience in mind. And
Okay.
so we write, and all the things we do at City Bible Forum, Third Space, and Real Dialogue, we write with both audiences in mind. So we
Mm,
have the Christian in mind who would want to be able to share their faith, but then we also have those who are inquiring and not Christian yet, but that they would be able to pick up this book and still be engaged, interested. Because actually, that's one of the things I've been encouraged by. It's not just been Christians who've
yeah.
actually really been challenged by it and actually enjoy it. And um, and so, with that in mind, you have to kind of keep that audience in mind, and also for film. Um, but then, I mean, I'll probably say in this book and also in the next book, um, I probably did push it a little bit, and so I had a couple editors go, maybe not use that language, or maybe
Okay.
not use that example, or maybe not be that graphic with that content. Not that I was over the top, but it
Yeah.
just sometimes it pushes the limit. Sometimes it's worth pushing people into discomfort, but when it gets to the point where it puts up the barrier and say I can't do this anymore, then maybe not. That
Yeah.
we shouldn't. And so it's getting good counsel, but then also praying about it. I mean, I have to say it's these this book as well as the ones that are hopefully becoming are bathed in prayer and just because I mean some days you wake up you go, should I really be doing this? I said I got other stuff to do. Come on. And but yeah, when you get spurred on not only by your friends and family, but also by and other readers, is by God really saying, no, this is what I want you to be doing. I think that you can really make that evident. And so, yeah, so I'm really glad to hear that. I'm glad that you felt that it was that Dylan's experience specifically,
Yeah.
is very real. Even his responses to, a good friend like Finn, and
Yeah.
that Finn would stick with him through it all. Yeah, and I think that's what we hope to be able to capture that because a book is better, a film is better, don't you think? When you feel like you could actually, oh, yeah, that's kind of my experience. I'm actually in it. I'm actually in the story. It's not just something that's happening to someone else, but you've been drawn in because all of a sudden, oh, yeah, I totally connect with that, with Dylan's experience right now, running into the hospital with his daughter who's just, broken her arm and or not fractured arm, I guess. But that sort of thing is just that hopefully people will be able to do that. So I'm glad that that had that impact for you, and hopefully that would do the same thing for others.
Yeah, I definitely so I had experiences on both sides just like you. I was like, "Oh, I've been in that those in Dylan's shoes, but I was also in Finn's shoes with some of it."
Exactly.
Yeah. But with that, I was also as I was reading their story, other people were coming to mind where I'm like, "This is their story. Like this is going on right now. Like I could
Right.
see it." So definitely, yeah, if you're looking for a medium to create some conversations, read the book because it will help create some of that and give you ideas of how to use film with other people's lives. Because it's going to come to people that you're interacting with. They're going to come to mind if you're trying to share the gospel with them for sure.
Well, and that's actually one of the things that I love about it. I mean, because I didn't know that this would happen, but that I can hand it to a Christian going, "Hey, if you want to know what's going on with Real Dialogue, but also hopefully be entertained by it, but then share it." And what's nice about this book is you can share it with other Christians, but also for those who aren't Christian, but yet, like you say, oh my word, this exact scenario happened, and you would probably really connect with this character, if it's Lise or if it's Finn or if it's Dylan or if it's Tina, I don't know. It's just all the different ones you'll be able to kind of go through and connect with. So the next one I'm hoping to get is on specifically on marriage and
Okay.
kind of the whole journey. It's a little bit longer because I have to build up two characters within it, but very similar tact, but yet looking at the marriage experience. And so hopefully that'll kind of come out and hopefully people will be able to connect on that front too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to it. So
Great.
you have to let us know when it's coming out. We'll have you back on. You can talk about it.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
So you've said you've had some stories or people share how this has impacted their lives. Could you give us just a couple of stories without, sharing too many details and of just how you've seen this book impacting people's lives and how the gospel has been able to come into families and households as a result of this medium?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that's the blessing. It's all of a sudden is when all of a sudden you have somebody walk up to you and start quoting the story back to you, or say, "Oh, this is how this person that this scenario, just as you were saying, this connected with me." And so to see it happening with strangers walking up, and then all of a sudden becoming friends because they've actually taken the time to look at and read the book is really quite encouraging to be able to kind of hear that. But then probably even more so is when I have the guys who walk up to me and said, "Yeah, you know what? And then I wanted to share this with my friends." Because what's nice about it, it's not too thick, and so especially it's a little bit more appealing in the sense that it's like, "Hey, you gotta check this out. It won't take you too long to be able to read it, or if you even want to get it online, you can do that." And how it is just easily shareable. Is that a good way of
Hmm.
putting it? I mean,
Hmm.
it's just easy to be able to kind of say it's an easy read, but then on top of it, it gives you kind of some ideas to be able to kind of move people closer to biblical conversations. And but probably in answering your question, the stories without giving away names that probably I hold near and dear to my heart would be those are the inquirer, the person who didn't really want to talk at all about Jesus and didn't want to talk much, but then all of a sudden you ask them about movies and then they're off to the races, and then all of a sudden they're talking more and more, and then you say, "Well, hey, funny enough, I wrote a book about this." And they're like, "Really?" I say, "Yeah," and then to be able to hand that to them and say, "Hey, I really would love to get your opinion. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on it. Give me your feedback, and take this as a gift." And what I'm doing, it's not just my book, it's really I'm handing them the gospel, because it's laid out in a story form, in a very different story form, but it's still there. And so I'm still able to, again, breaking down a barrier, as far as just being able to kind of hand it over to people. So it's it's definitely become something more than I ever thought. It's really quite a blessing. Even though it's been hard, there's been a lot of challenges, there's been pushback, all these different things along the way. Yet, for all of it, it's been worth it just for that one moment, when you're able to hand it over to somebody who's considering what it is to have a relationship with Jesus, and that's quite exciting for me, Tim.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I I hope that that's what we're able to kind of do for people, as kind of the years progress, because it's one of those. Also, it's just from a ministry standpoint, I'm able to it kind of gives you the view of what I do. When people
Yeah.
go, "Well, what do you do?" I mean, "Do you just sit there and watch movies?" And I said, "No, no, most of my time is talking with people, and sharing with them, and moving them naturally towards it." I mean, the other night, just sitting there with a guy who's become a friend of mine who doesn't know Jesus yet, but yet wants to go along and kind of hang out with me and do things with me, but yet be able to kind of see that whole experience, and then also to connect with real dialogue and with the word becomes film has been just really a blessing. So yeah, I'd say it's probably I get so much reward out of it even after it being around for what, the past 6 months or so.
Yeah. So in the book, you also provide resources for people if they're like, "Well, I don't know what movie and I don't know how to find the gospel." You actually provide some resources. Can you talk a little bit about those? So if they are contemplating, like, this sounds interesting, maybe I want to do this. How does it help me? What are some of those resources you provide to help people understand how to do some of this?
Sure. Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah, pretty. I'll just kind of just put them into three buckets for you. As one is training. So we actually have a Finding God in Film training course that we do. I do them personally with local churches, but we actually now have it online so people can see how you do it. I'd love to say that, it's taken such deep thought and we've just gone through and kind of put all this together. It's like, no, it's actually pretty simple. It's pretty much finding a film and then looking at what are some of the themes from the Bible that you could consider talking with people about and then doing that. I mean, next Friday night, I was invited to come along with a group. They always get together and they watch films together, a group of singles that get together on a regular basis. And they said, hey, we use one of your discussion guides. Would you mind coming along and kind of showing us how you do it? We've got both Christians and those who aren't Christians yet um, in the group, and it'd be great to have you kind of come along and do that. And it's going great. But then the fact that they're already using it because the Finding God in Film training then moves to you just using our discussion guides, which we've actually made it simpler. I can even send you the link
Okay.
where we call it the roadmap, and all they are is based on themes. So, like if you have a film that obviously talks about faith or redemption or trust or love, we have these discussion guides. They're pretty simple. They just give you a little biblical backup, but it gets the conversation flowing down that direction. Because one of the guys goes, "Well, we use your discussion guide, but we ended up on a completely different discussion on the Bible later." And I said, "Great,
Yeah.
it got you there.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this thing where they're going through and you have to do it my way. No, it's actually seeing where God kind of takes you, but that you were talking about biblical ideas is really quite compelling."
Yeah.
So there's the Finding God in Film. There's the discussion guides that you can use, and these are free for you to be able to use. We call them the roadmap. And then finally, our reviews. Our reviews, we do reviews on almost every single film. So all of our writers that come out in cinemas, and we try to get to many of the big ones that are on streaming. And with that, what we do is we write a review that's quality of the content in the movie. So how good is the movie? And then we have at the bottom is the real dialogue. It's like one point that comes from this film that you would be able to get a conversation going. So this trains Christians on how to think biblically about this film. And then, but if you're not a Christian yet, but yet you're reading the review, you might go, "Oh, well, I've never really considered that before." And then, of course, we offer a link for them to be able to, if they'd like to go into conversation further, that they can do that through Real Dialogue in Third Space. And so those would be the three things. So it'd be Finding God in Film, the discussion guides, and then also just our reviews, which we have. They are up regularly. You can see them at realdialogue.com, or you can actually see them on Facebook
Yeah. And
or Instagram.
we'll add all those links into the descriptions and things. So like we'll make it easy for all of you watching, listening, to find those. But yeah, and I would say check it all out. It's well worth checking out. I didn't know you even
Thanks,
had
Tim.
the YouTube channel, so I've been binge watching that here lately. So on Hope 103.2, I've been binging.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've been binging that.
yeah.
Yeah, so lots of good stuff
I
out
didn't
there.
even yeah, I didn't even bring up the watch
Yeah,
list. Yeah, that's our new podcast we just started. The watch list has been a blast. Now, as you can appreciate, a podcast is a lot of work.
it
I
is.
mean, it's a lot more work than most people. It's not just throwing a microphone down and just talking with people or interviewing them. It's really there's quite a bit of work and pre-post and all that sort of stuff that kind
Yep.
of goes into it. But boy, it's been worth it. We've been having a ball, and so hopefully you can enjoy it. So definitely check out the watch list on YouTube, and because it also you can subscribe to the podcast on wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say you talked about how they kind of took, well, we didn't really follow your curriculum. One thing that I often tell people, and so if you do get these resources, this is helpful little hint for you. The goal is not to get the people through the curriculum. The goal is to get the curriculum or God's word through the people. And so
Exactly.
go where you need to go to get God's word into the people. Yeah.
And that's it, and it's the beginning of the process. Sometimes you will see people go all the way down the journey and come to accept Christ as their savior. But really what we want to do is get the conversation started, get people started on that journey. We want to get them into God's word, but we just use film as kind of a way of being able to start that process. And so, yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm like going, I'm not hard and fast that you've got to use it this way. And it's, yeah, we aren't dealing in a linear kind of thing. It's really kind of all over the place, but yet it's amazing to see if you really trust God with it, and a wild and crazy notion, but actually praying before you go see a movie. But how God really, it's, I find it every single time I sit in a room with a whole bunch of other film critics on a regular basis, and they know who I am. I'm very open with who I am, but I'm also their friends. I mean, I really enjoy them and enjoy conversations with them. But yet, inevitably, because of who I am and even what the films are about, a lot of times they end up just naturally asking me about God, the Bible, all that sort of thing, because I am the only one. Call it light in a dark room. I'm usually the only one sitting there that has a Christian faith, and so I am the resource. And they're going, "Okay, you're not quite as weird as I thought all those other Christians were. So maybe I could just kind of hang out with you." And it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's what an honor. I
Yeah.
mean, it'd be scary for some, I know, to be the only, but I pray for my friends, and I'm very open about that. And so I don't have to necessarily hold back on who I am as a Christian, but then also I can also express my love of film and the qualities of that and what we can do with it.
Is there anything else you'd want people to know about The Word Becomes Film, the book?
Yeah, yeah. I think I really appreciate all the questions. I think that more than anything is that get a hold of it, read it, send me your feedback. I'd love to hear what you think about it. But also, if you get it, don't hold on to it for too long, or at least by. I always encourage people, because just so you know, all the money from it goes back to the ministry of Third Space and Real Dialogue. And so, get a couple of them, because if you like it, think about the person like you were talking about, Tim, that you're going, oh, I think I've got a friend, because a
Mhm.
friend who would love this book, either a person who loves movies or somebody who you really think that this character would really connect with. And I think that it's one of those great opportunities of be able to really express the gospel in a very unique way. And so I hope that you enjoy it, but I'd love to hear from you too. So obviously we have our websites, we have our social media platforms, so you can always contact us that way. But I just love being here. I love having this conversation. So anytime you want to do this, Tim, don't have a problem reaching out to me.
Okay. I'm gonna add in too. We're here in the States in the summer. Multiple churches will do like their at the movies series.
Yeah.
If that's you and you're a pastor listening, there's a really good book to connect the movie to the gospel. Like
Well, and
maybe
reach out to
consider.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can tell you how we do ours, because ours are meant to be
Yeah.
evangelistic. I think unfortunately some churches think that we've got to do them in the church, or we've got to do a Christian movie,
Yeah.
which isn't bad. But I think that it's better if you can do it in the cinema, and you do it with a film that would really draw those who aren't Christians, to kind of come in and see it, and then allow the film to tell its story. But then you actually are the ones that give the opportunity of introducing Jesus into the whole narrative. And so, yeah, it's a blast. I mean, it is a lot of fun, and it is very different. But hopefully, if you have any interest, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to switch a little bit because I just got like practical
Mm,
questions. Since
okay, cool.
you've been doing this ministry thing for a while, so let's get some wisdom from you. So, what is one tool or lesson that you've learned along the way that you wish you would have known at the very beginning?
Oh, right. Um, I think the key thing is having good counsel around you all the time, and trusting and finding the valued people that you really would be able to know, and be able that know you, and be able to feedback. I mean, now fortunately, like you, I have a great wife who is able to do that. Kathy's an amazing woman, best friend, and she feeds into that. But you need friends, and you need people to get around you, um, and give you that counsel and wisdom. Also, I mean, it's not something that I necessarily had to learn, but it's one of the things that I kind of always go back to. Man, you just got to be in the Word of God every day. You just, you just can't forego that. I mean, you just got to spend time with Him. it's the most valuable thing that you can ever do is if it'll lift you out of the darkest places, and it'll also keep you humble when you're in the high places. And so I think that it's really essential to be able to do that. But then it's also, I think one of the things that really is important is always looking at what other opportunities are there to reach people for Christ,
Mhm.
and really go and find the experts who are doing it, even if you're not. Like for me, I mean, with film, I had three friends who they were the experts at the time, and they just poured into my life. I mean, they really gave me so much of themselves for me to be able to even do what I'm doing now. And but then on top of it, this is always the hard thing, is that even within the body of Christ, there will be the naysayers. There will be those that come up against you. Um, and and I wish I could say that, I was in business and I was in Christian ministry, and it was very different as far as how things are operated. I said, well, nah, they're still we're all sinners. And so there are those times, and so that's why it's good to have a great group of people around you that can really support you, because there will be those in the body of Christ who will kind of come up against what you're doing and saying that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. And so just making sure that you have good counselors around you at all times. And I think also constantly learning. I think going finding books, finding different teachers, listening to the podcasts. Don't stay in that silo that just kind of keeps you in one place, but kind of constantly learning and kind of bringing that in. I think it's critical to be able to do that. Then I'll finish with um, always have non-Christian friends with the
Mhm.
goal that they would become Christian,
Mhm.
but that you're only going to be able to really have a true view of what's going on out there in the world
Mhm.
as if you're actually friends with those um, who aren't Christian yet. As I
Mhm.
always say, I prefer to say that opposed to just saying
Yeah.
non-Christians.
Yeah.
And because I'm always praying for them and they know that. But then on top of it, I mean, actually, some of these guys are some of my best friends just because they just are my mates. They like hanging around with me for whatever reason. But yet, then on top of it, I get to hear the real world, opposed
Yeah.
to what we sometimes kind of get isolated in our Christian realm. And so, because how do you reach the world if you're not actually out in it? You don't have to
Yeah.
sacrifice or be of the world, but yet you have to be in it, and so it's always looking at that, because I just really value my friends and my neighbors who don't know Jesus yet, but yet it gives me the challenge to make sure I'm sharing my faith on a regular basis. But then on top of it, living life with them, so I know actually how they're living. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I like that.
I don't know if that helps, but that's kind
No,
of
it
those are some
does.
things I learned. Yeah.
Yeah, that's some good stuff. Are there like maybe one, two books that you would just say, hey, I would just take some time to read this. Maybe it's not a book, maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's a movie, but where you just like, hey, if you're new and starting in this, or you're like, man, I feel like I need to get a little bit more equipped in something, or something that just challenged you, a book that challenged you, what recommendations would you have?
Sure, probably one book that I've recommended almost since the beginning of, especially with the film side, because that's where it would probably be unique for me. I mean, because I mean, you gotta love, you can always go back to Moody, you can always go back to Spurgeon, you can go back to some of these great books, and be able to kind of, or yeah, Tim Keller,
Yes.
God love him, but in the film realm, there's a guy named Robert K. Johnston who actually
Okay.
wrote a book called Real Spirituality. It's REEL,
Okay.
spirituality, theology and film and dialogue.
Okay.
And if you really want to kind of understand what we do, that he's very deep thinker, has thought great about this and really looked at it and really seen the connection between film, culture, and then also with theology and how we're actually able to get it back to that. It's a great to be able to do if you enjoy that type of book. It is a good read and also just kind of gives you an idea of kind of what we do. One more recent book that especially for creatives, that's because one of the other things we do is we're not only working through film, but we also like to work to the industry because
Okay.
of all the um all of the panel discussions and different articles and things like that that we've read, we've come in contact with a lot of Christian actors, directors, writers, and all this sort of thing who are going, "How do I stay a Christian in this realm?" Especially because even Christians push back on me even being in this industry, which is so disappointing.
Yeah.
If you want to know why so many films, so much junk does get put out there, is just because we pulled ourselves out of it so many years ago.
Yep.
That gets me on a whole other board. I
I
won't
could
even go
go
down
there
that
with
path.
you.
Yeah, but well, because I mean, it's the whole thing why I don't really critique Christian films too often, just because because we first look at the quality, then we look at the content or what the messaging is. But anyway, back to it is how do we encourage creatives in our industry to stay in the industry and to still be Christian, but then also how do you reach out to this industry? Because really so many people in the creative arts and in the film industry are hurting. And we have a great message and a great solution with the gospel. And unfortunately, we pretty much have kind of turned our back on that industry, and it's unfortunate. But getting back to the book, so the one book that I would recommend, it's a guy named Jordan Rayner.
Yeah. Okay.
Called to Create
Okay.
is a really good one. It really encourages the creatives that to be creative. We
Mhm.
serve a creative God who created us, and that's why we want to create things and make things, and especially films and other forms of art, and that we need to celebrate that. So that would be a book that I would recommend. It's pretty easy read, but also it really encourages those in the industry.
I just read his Redeeming Your Time about a year and a
Yeah.
half. Oh man, that I was not ready for that book. Like I got into it like whatever, and I started reading. I was like, whoa! So
Yeah.
I will be. You recommended that another one of his, so I will be reading that one. I have not read
Oh,
that one
yeah.
yet. Yeah.
You know what? And what's funny about it is that I remember reading it a couple years ago, and then I was sitting down with the guy that's the head of Studio Canal, one of the film distributors here, and he's a Christian fella, and he actually said, "Oh, that book just it encouraged me." Because he said, I work in an industry where people are always going, "You're a Christian and you're working in that industry." And he's going, "Well, you want Christians in every industry. What are you talking about?" But yet this book encouraged him to see the value of him being in the position he was
Mm.
in. And so I think that we need to do more of that. We need to encourage everybody to be in these various industries, but also how we need to equip them on how you can remain a Christian in these various areas of work.
Right. I normally ask this question last, so I'm gonna go with this one. But how would you, what would you have to say to somebody that just needs a little bit of encouragement? So they're in ministry, they're just going through a really tough season right now. They're discouraged. They're really considering jumping out and just kind of going,
Mm.
I think I'm done. Um, what word would you have for them?
You know what? It was funny. I was kind of prepared for this question, but I think I have a different answer just based on my devotions this morning. Okay,
Okay.
so I hope you don't mind. So it's directly from what the Lord kind of gave me this morning, because I mean I always talk about determination and focus and all that, but this morning it was actually taking the time with God and going to a quiet place and kind of really taking a moment, opposed to pulling yourself out of the emotional whatever that's caused you to be in this position, whatever difficulty has kind of come down your path that made you get to the point where you want to quit, and really take time with the Lord. Because one of the things my wife challenged me with the other day, because we're talking about the ministry and all that, and she said, "Is real dialogue your Isaac?"
Mm-hmm.
And I go, "Wow." She said, "Well, would you put it on the altar if God asked you to?" And I said, "Yeah, you have to ask that." And so when you get to that point in ministry, have you gotten to the point where you're just going to throw it on the altar? Are you giving it up because you want to burn it and you don't want to touch it again? Or do you want to give it up because it's really you're giving it over to God and trusting him with it? And I think that that's what you need to take time before you just run away, before you quit. Take the time with the Lord. Make sure that what the Lord wants you to do, opposed to what you desire to do in the heat of the moment, and He will meet you there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it seems like a throwaway line, but He will. but you need to take the time where you're undistracted and you're really spending time with him. Spend the time in his word. Don't listen to, don't listen to all the different things going on in the world as much as really getting to his word and finding out from him. Because I think that that's really will um, help those who are discouraged right now more than anything else. I know that's totally, as far as being an old missionary who's been around for a while now. Uh, it's when I have those 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh my word, I can't do this anymore. And head in and sit down and just spend some time in the word. It's amazing how he grounds you and also lifts you. And so hopefully that was it was a little bit different than probably what I would have answered maybe yesterday, but I think that that's really where I'll sit today, and hopefully that's encouraging for someone.
Yeah, I think that's a good word. Before we go, I do have to say this because if my children and some of the youth at our church watch this, and some of the people that know me well, so I said my favorite movies, and
Right.
I left one out, and I have to bring it
Okay.
up because they will call me out. Is Ratatouille.
Oh yeah.
I love Ratatouille. So my favorite part, yes, my favorite part is when the chef that gets fired basically is looking through the roof down, and he realizes the rat is controlling Linguini, and
Right.
he's like, oh, the rat's the chef. And that moment for me, so this is going to the gospel, that moment for me is the realization of the Holy Spirit is the one controlling the person.
That's right.
Not It's not the person, it's the Holy Spirit behind it. He's the
There you
rat.
go.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's good.
yeah.
Oh, I love it. Nah, that was when Pixar was great. I hope that they
Yeah.
can get back to it again
So
because
do I.
I think that they've lost the plot at Disney and at Pixar for a while here. But yeah, oh no, I love Ratatouille.
Yep.
And all so many of the Pixar films because I still go back. The Incredibles probably for me
Mm.
is my favorite animated film. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse almost is pipped it. I mean, this series is amazing. I mean,
So
the animation is incredible.
I read
But
enough of your review on the newest one to go, okay, I need to make time to go see this movie because you really, it seems
oh,
like you loved it. Yeah. So
oh, we loved it. And
yeah.
well, and the first one is still I still think is the best Spider-Man movie ever
Yeah.
made.
Ooh.
And this one's good, but this is kind of that The Empire Strikes Back, the
Okay.
bridging film to
Yeah.
the third film that'll be
Yeah.
coming. But oh man, it's so good. But getting back to it, I agree with you with Ratatouille and also Pixar, but also for me, The Incredibles it just is one that uh, where the father is he's not perfect but yet he's still held in high regard and he
Yeah.
wants to be a father and he just loves even though he fails in some ways he loves his family and does so much to be able to sacrifice for them and Pixar used to be able to just nail it when with some of these different subjects and I thought that I really felt like that up was just still
Yeah.
especially for those of us in more of a senior stage of
Yeah.
life and even though I know the little boy's name is Russell, but anyway, um, but yeah, I agree with you. But I really I think that Ratatouille is a beautiful film, and that really shows you the brilliance
Yeah.
of that film. I'll stop after a minute, but the brilliance of that film, how you could have a rat infestation in a restaurant and a house and make it entertaining and not make everybody just run to the hills. It's just brilliant. I mean, so they are great storytellers as well as really tapping into something quite special as far as the what they are able to convey on screen is beautiful because also it's probably one of the best mentors you'll see in films. I mean,
Yeah.
so the even though he's passed on, here he is one of the best mentors, as the former chef is able to kind of speak into Linguini's life. I mean, it's really quite beautiful. So anyway, so I agree with you. Well done to the youth group and well done to you. Ratatouille is a good film to pick.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for talking about it. Everybody, go buy this book. Buy two of them, one for you, one for the person you're going to give it to. And check out the reviews and stuff. If you want a faith-based place to get a review, this is the perfect place to go. You'll get a lot of really good ones. So
Thanks so much, Tim. I really appreciate it. Love being on the show. Really, very, very thankful for you. And so hopefully be able to help out with so you want to be in ministry even
Yeah.
better.
All right. Appreciate it. Talk to you later. And Russ just says so much energy, and he is so exciting. Like I had a blast. I think you could even tell I was having a blast interviewing him. He is just loving what he's doing, and sure, some of it can be difficult. There can be difficulties in all of that, but man, he is just he's on fire, and he's getting used in so many ways. I'm going to share all the links of the places he's at. So if you are interested in finding out more about reviews, he stays up to date with all the movies that you will ever hear of. There are reviews coming out. So if you want to know a Christian worldview, Christian perspective on it, Russ does a great job with it. He also, if you'd rather watch a YouTube video instead of read a review, he does reviews through a YouTube video that or a YouTube channel that I will connect in our descriptions. And he has written a book. He's done so many things. God's using him in really, really awesome ways. Make sure you check him out. I started following him everything. There were some areas that I forgot or I didn't even realize he was in, and I've started binge watching and binge reading all of it. It's been a lot of fun. So make sure you're doing that, especially if you love movies. He will have all that data for you. As we get out of here today, if you would like, subscribe, check out other episodes. Like if something just connected with you, you may see another episode that really stands out to you. Make sure you check that out. Feel free to share it. Please share it with other people, especially those that need a little bit of encouragement or equipping. Or maybe there's somebody who's just like, I don't even know what ministry's like. Like, I've thought about being a pastor. I'm not sure what that is. My church has talked to me about coming on staff, but I don't know. Send it to them. I'm trying to pull back the veil and give you a little glimpse of what it's like to be on a church staff. So send it out, share it with them. And if you're just here listening or watching because you just want to support your pastors and your church staff better, I'm so glad you're here. And if you think other people and other church members and other people just attend a church, serve in a church, would benefit from this, share that with them as well. But as always, thank you so much for being here, for checking it out, for being a part of this journey. I'm very, very grateful for you, and I'll see you next time.